Hi everyone, thanks for coming. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we're on Whadjuk Noongar Boodja, always was, always will be. I would like to acknowledge the elders of Whadjuk country and all people who've gathered here for Revealed this weekend, and their elders and their custodians of their country. I'm Zali Morgan, I'm the Revealed curator. This afternoon we have a panel discussion focusing on creative sovereignty and legacies. This panel will discuss important questions relating to legacies, sovereignty and autonomy for Aboriginal people working in creative industries, covering questions including what does the next generation of Aboriginal creative advocates envision for the future? How can the broader arts industry collectively support a strong future centred around Aboriginal creative sovereignty? On this panel, we have Shannon Clohessy, Emily Rose, Georgia Mokak facilitating, Amanda Bell and Charmaine Paper Talk Green. Over to you guys.
Thank you.
Hello. My name's Georgia Mokak. I'm a Jugan person from Broome in the West Kimberley. I'm very much a visitor and a guest to Whadjuk Noongar Boodja today and for the past 4 days. I'm usually based on Gadigal and Wongal country in Sydney, so a long way from where I live and also a long way from my homelands. And I'm just the one that's hanging out to ask the questions, and all of you beautiful 4 women are gonna be storytelling with me today. Maybe we'll just start with introductions and a little bit about your practice, if you want to touch on the work that's in the show, and what creative sovereignty means to you. Maybe Annie, Charmaine, can I start with? Okay.
I tried not to look at you. Knew that I'd be Okay. Hello everyone. Charmaine. I'm a Yamatji woman from Geraldton and Mullawall. And I want to just say what creative sovereignty means to me. And I've actually written down what it means, so I want to read that. It is a power to control and define my creative narratives about myself, my family, my community and my culture. I'm primarily a poet, so literature and narrative inquiry is my main focus, but I do, through the Art Centre, come into a lot of the visual arts and the textiles, and as you can see in Revealed, I've created some pieces with my sister and my niece, so we've gone for intergenerational and we've gone for family energy coming together, and that's what I really love in what we can do as creatives, and we don't have to kind of go on this solo journey on our own, but we can bring the energy of our families in. My writing is, I've been doing writing for a very long time as a teenager, and that kind of is my first love in the creative world. That's all I guess I really want to say to that and introducing myself.
Thank you. Amanda, do you want to go next?
Amanda Bell. I'm Badimai Yamaji and Yuad Noongar woman. I'm currently living in Goombarup, and I grew up on Wadandi land in Undulap, Busselton. I wasn't sure what it meant to me, and it wasn't until probably we had conversations a mere 15 minutes ago that I kind of figured we are always talking about this, we just don't use the term creative sovereignty. We're talking about it in acts of resistance, in creating safe spaces for ourselves, whether it be within institutions, anti-colonialism, recognising that we're another day in the colony and trying to extract ourselves from that in acts of decolonisation, and all the words that... the actions that we're doing, and then these words come on top. And I've tried to read some academic papers, failed miserably. It's been a long time since I had to produce something from an academic paper. But I realise it's all the things we're doing, creating spaces, gathering together, and in these times, more and more needed, and finding our own spaces, not only as acts of resistance, because that sometimes is old and it gets stale, and I know even in my own work sometimes anger and resistance and trying to smash things leaves you a lot less energy, and sometimes it gets kind of boring in your work. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment with it.
Well, thank you. We're going to come back to a bunch of those ideas in the next hour. Emily, over to you.
Hi everyone, Nanquo, Emily Rose. I'm a Noongar Yamaji woman, fourth generation artist, granddaughter of Norman MacDonald and daughter of Robin Jean. I'm really excited to be on this panel today talking to these beautiful women, and excited to talk to the subject. When I first saw the subject and trying to think what sovereign, like creative sovereignty means to me, my mind went to my daughter actually. I've got a 3-year-old daughter, because I've been doing a lot of research about generational change and raising sovereign children. And so I was thinking about her first and thinking, I don't tell her when to eat. She goes to the cupboard and she gets a cracker, and I don't tell her, right, it's time to go to the bathroom. She makes that decision for herself. And so I thought, okay, so in my art practice, it's, deciding who I want and don't want to work with. It's deciding where I want to work, or, what contracts that I'm safe and comfortable to say yes or no to, and feeling free like you should feel as a child growing up, and continue that feeling, and who are you before people told you who to be, and going back to that in the creative sense.
Yeah, over to you, Shannon. Thank you.
Kaya, my name is Shannon, and I'm on a panel with a lot of hard acts to follow. I'm a Wadandi woman from the southwest of WA, down in Bustleton, and I come from a wonderful, supportive family. My parents are in the front row and here to support me with my friend Izzy, and I think my art practice is based on our stories, like the stories of my family, of the times that we spent down along the coast. I'm a glass blower and I work with wood, so I like to use glass because it captures the fluidity of water, and that fluidity of water is the place where I find my stories. In the spray of the salt water on the waves, it tells my connection to country, to the salt water, and to country and my family and my wonderful community that supports me. I'm an environmental scientist as well as an artist, and I like to use my practice to weave together cultural knowledge, environmental advocacy, and my personal memories of that time spent growing up along the coast. So a lot of my pieces reflect our connection to country, to place, and to each other. Creative sovereignty, to me, is being able to tell our stories on our terms. It means honouring our old people and our knowledge systems, and making space for our culture and our stories to grow in contemporary space, because they've always been there and they always will be, but making a space in a changing world to come back to what matters. It's important for me because that's what drives me to produce art and to do all the work that I do, is making it something that we can all come back to, not just for me and my family, but for our community and all the people down home.
Beautiful. Thank you, everybody. And maybe just for a little bit of context, I wanted all of you to go first as revealed artists. But on the East Coast, I work at a place called the National Association for the Visual Arts, which is a national peak body that advocates for artists and arts workers and organisations, and operate to sort of set a standard from an approach that is best practice. So I guess, yes, the topic of creative sovereignty feeds into most, if not all, of my work over there. And just really grateful to be talking to you about it today. Although in saying that, I also just wanted to acknowledge that creative sovereignty globally across First Peoples is maybe not something that is currently supported fully in our art sector currently. We continue to be in a state in this industry that provides what we might call performative engagement, what we might call lip service as Black fellas. In regards specifically to artistic freedom, creative sovereignty as we're referring to it today, truth-telling, etc. These spaces, these agencies promote truth-telling and most of the time hopefully provide space for us, as we can see here today. But our truths as Black and as brown people can be often seen as sort of too high risk, extremely complex, maybe too political. On a continent like this one that has experienced the ongoing sort of trials of erasure of us more, and also in the midst of a continuing genocide, we know that this has lasting effects on our communities, and that's our experience daily. And a lot of our creative and cultural practitioners share this in your work, and some of that we can also see in your work in this exhibition. In this moment, we are currently witnessing a damaging withdrawal from risk and from truth-telling, especially our Palestinian and Arab family, that is resulting in an erasure of artistic freedom, I guess. So as First Nations peoples, I just wanted to raise that as something that can't be ignored in this moment. Maybe we can talk about our own creative freedom currently and some of the tools that you might have in place to ensure that as independent artists and also in the collectives that you're part of, and also maybe some of the challenges that you might find around navigating creative sovereignty in your practice, in institutions, whatever you'd like to touch on. Has somebody got any initial thoughts? Or I don't want to put anybody on the spot right now, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, I've actually, I want to read something that I've written previously in this area, and that does talk to freedom and artistic expressions, and it also talks to the challenges that we face. One of the big challenges for me is being based in a region that's not actively advocated for by outsiders in the arts field, and that is a big challenge, being a regional artist, if you're seen coming from an area that's not sexy enough for the arts. But I want to read this. I live in and navigate the cultural interface. I'm talking about colonial spaces built on our country, such as pastoral stations, towns and cities where many Yamaji now live. It is these spaces we bring our Yamaji cultural knowledge, worldviews and ways of understanding. It is this space when the square, the colonial space, and the circle, the Yamaji space, collides. And many tensions and challenges exist. Two different cultures. I'm trying to think of some good examples here to explain further. Perhaps the infamous assimilation policy, the WA 1905 Act, or the White Australia policy with colonial settlers and invaders brutally forcing Yamaji people to fit into their colonial ways of being. And even the popular closing the gap mindset and practice, colliding when goals are based on achieving that which belongs to the colonial settler state. The square and circle don't fit, so there's been mass whitewashing since invasion, settlement and colonisation. And we Yamaji must begin or continue to loudly chant, "This is my data and this is my sovereign right. No more whitewashing. No more whitewashing." This all comes back to artistic expression and freedom of expression and people not being afraid to use their voice to tell their proper story, the one that's not shaped by the popular community or society thoughts. And for some artists, I see that quite difficult. They will go to the decorative art, they will go to the pretty spaces, when the truth-telling is a real thing, and we shouldn't have to whitewash that anymore. I still see that challenge.
Anani, Charmaine, yeah, thank you. The group of people that you work with at Yamaji Arts is it one of the oldest, the longest running art centre in the Midwest?
In the Midwest it is,
Midwest,
yeah.
yep.
So we kind of formed, we were one of the reasons that Archwa was created because there was a vacuum and a gap in the protection of Aboriginal art centres and supporting art centre spaces that, one, couldn't go with desert, two, didn't belong with Anchor, and three, didn't belong anywhere. And this is where Archwa really came into existence, and the practices and the challenges of an art centre is really sometimes you're forgotten about, especially if you're in an urban-based art centre and you're not feeding into the ethnocentric views of some of those who work in the art centre continuum, that the only Aborigine, true Aborigine, is the one out in remote and regional. And that still plays out a lot today. And it's quite difficult, harmful, and it's also upsetting to people like us at Yamaji Arts who have that extra challenge, and then we look for our creative space. What can we bring to the space that's not going to say, well, that's Yamaji, but also the tourist market and what the audience wants also determines what people create. And sometimes there's that whole link of money, and money's seen as one of those success indicators of art centres and creative spaces, which sometimes disadvantages what an artist can do. Yeah.
Beautiful, thank you. Shannon, you're also part of a collective, is that right? Noongar Arts program? Or is that, am I getting my artists mixed up now?
No, I am. Amanda and I both are.
Yeah, beautiful. So just on the conversation around what you might have in place to protect your creative freedom, your creative sovereignty, and any challenges that you might...
I think that the challenge that we all find is people expecting Indigenous art to look a certain way. We're obviously from an area down south where dot paintings aren't a thing, and the expectations that if it's not dot painting or it's not that expected Aboriginal art, then it's not Aboriginal art. And I feel like we're all working on expanding everyone's understanding of what that actually plays into. I'm very privileged to be a part of a collective that my mum is also part of, coming down to Bunbury, even though it's a longer commute than it is for her. So it's great to have that sort of backup of amazing women who are part of the collective that I am, who all have those strengths that they bring together to support each other and stand up for each other. I think that helps you be able to be yourself when you've got that strong backup, because it's not easy trying to change public perspectives of what Indigenous art is. And I don't particularly like speaking in public or standing up and saying things, but there are instances where it does matter and you should say something, and that's what I think it has, that collective strength of community to come together and do.
Beautiful. Thank you for being strong and joining us this afternoon. Amanda, have you got anything to add?
I've got things to add. I don't know whether they're going to add much, but look, honestly, I'm trying to figure it out. I go between sitting, I feel like I'm an older woman sitting on my veranda screaming at people who go past because I'm enraged about something, or it's frustrating because the inner sanctums of power are places where you very rarely get to be. And when you are close to that, you don't even get close to the power base. But when you're even a little bit closer, they let you know because they don't want you in there. And the structures are violent. They are built on violence, and they are violent. We don't see it. Well, now we've got a orange example in the world that's happening, and it's obvious. And people are going, what the fuck's going on? Well, it's always there. It's always burning. There's violence inbuilt in colonialism in the structures. So in the arts, it's like that with everything else. And some of these other things that are laid on top of it, how Aboriginal people should paint, what is Aboriginal art, truth-telling is this, reconciliation is this. If you're not involved in that and with an open heart and whatever, if you're resisting that, that's not when we should be walking together. All these layers and layers and layers of stuff. Still trying to figure it out. And the way I find the best way now, after having worked in public service and worked as a social worker and in that field and in mental health, is in art, in collaboration, in finding spaces that you build language and the language of sovereignty and creative sovereignty. How that works, where that is dependent on locals and spaces like Revealed, and increasingly getting more and more Aboriginal-led and having these conversations and building safe spaces. And if non-Aboriginal people come to listen and be involved, it's good, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because we're doing it, and we're doing it in between spaces. We might not be doing it in those so-called inner sanctums of power, but that's not the power we want. In the end, do we want to replicate that power? We fucking don't. Sorry, I'm so sweary and I'm getting older. Sorry, I apologise to young people that are here. Don't swear. It's not nice. You can see I try and rein myself in places like that because when I'm, at home, when you're on the forums, on the internet, you can stir people up and whatever. But hopefully with the artwork, it's a beautiful, sometimes can be a very soft way, like the Judy Wheeler, the language, Noongar language led me to a softer place. I started off with a bit of, head banging, a bit of punch, and the Noongar language, going to a Noongar linguist and getting English put into Noongar, then Noongar back to English. So powerful, just that, and not worrying about the English. Then you throw the English aside. As much as I love Rage Against the Machine, the English words were the start, and then it went to Noongar, and then the Noongar to the English was all about holding, not smashing. It was all about this is our responsibility and our obligations to hold pain and hold anger and hold all those things. And so that language, that beautiful language, that ancient Wooditch language showed the way. And so that, to me, is where we're going to create sovereign spaces, gathering, collaborating with others, internationally and locally, but most of all each other at local levels, and through Revealed for ourselves and for others who want to come and gather. Don't know whether that's answering. That's where I'm at.
Absolutely. I think there's space for multiple types of rage.
I'm not going to stop that, but yeah.
Okay. Okay, we're going to keep that one quiet. Emily, in a yarn that we had maybe a week ago, you were talking about some of the resources that are available in the state and also maybe nationally also to support blackfellas in the arts and navigating some of these challenges that we've just been sharing. Do you want to share some of the things, that you have found that are available to you to help protect your practice, and as someone who's really thinking and is embedded in your work, future generations, and a very collaborative work.
In terms of being an independent artist, I've worked a little bit with some art centres. I've worked with Julawalu, and I was amazed by how much support they were getting, and every moment I worked with them, I was blown away. I got a lot of support through that as well, and I was supported with the City of Belleville, and it kind of made me think a lot more about how moving forward in my art career, am I going to get supported, because otherwise I am going to get burnt out or these sorts of things. I have a very supportive family already, and then outside of that, I'm blown away by how much the community is holding me as well and guiding me, and the resources that are available. But it's funny, people, I think when they hire me, I am getting a little bit into some public artwork jobs and branching into that sort of scene. And first of all, I've not studied, so I've had to collaborate, well, not had to, I love my mum and we're working together a lot, but I was struck at this, I've got to have had these 5 things to get this job. So I have to have been to uni, or I have to have studied at TAFE or something to be able to put an artwork in a public space. So I'm working with my family to get into those spaces. I'm lucky that I have that. A lot of other independent artists don't get that opportunity. So there's that. And then I think everything I've learnt from my family and from my community, I walk into that room and I think they hire me, seeing me as a young, sweet girl thing, I don't know. And I think I've been told they get a bit blown away by how firm I am on my rights. And before we even start this conversation, what's your budget? And is there a contract? And then going into the contracts, I work a lot with arts law, Artists in the Black. I am so grateful for that free course that I had. And now I'm writing my own contracts. And I'm like, I've not learnt how to do this, and I'm not sure how this happened, but now I have the knowledge to not always have to call a lawyer, but to do my own amendments of a contract. I'm pretty proud of. And so, just making sure that and sometimes it's actually that they don't even realise. I might say to them, do you realise you want me to sign away my rights of my artwork to you? And they said, I don't know, we're buying your art. And I said, but do you realise you can literally do whatever you want with that artwork? You could make more of that sculpture anywhere around. And a lot of the time they don't realise. But more importantly, that 7 years after I die, they will still be able to do what they want with that artwork. And that blows my mind for my daughter. My daughter won't have that, ongoing sort of, from the legacy of the artwork, like my mum and my nana have brought down to me. So, and there's Nava and there's other definitely, but there's also just people in the community that I feel safe with to just, hey, I'm stuck on this, or this has come up for me that I wasn't expecting, and I don't know how to navigate that. I will say, not because I'm at PICA, but Zali and the PICA team and the Archwa team have made me feel so culturally safe in that space of painting the mural in there. And when we're talking about sovereignty and these sorts of things, I just want to say they even removed a light for me to paint my mural. So, things like that. It's like there is a way to do things if we say, hey, is that possible can we move that emergency light? And at first I was like, oh, am I asking too much to do that? But then I thought, what about the next generations of artists that are going to come through? What about next year at Revealed? There might be another artist wanting to paint a mural or something to branch out into that area. And just removing that light means they can explore that wall and do something great in the future as well. So, yeah.
It really works. Love walking in there for the first time today. It feels safe in there, feels enveloped in there. It's beautiful, so congratulations.
You were sharing with me on maybe Friday night that there's a sort of collaborative element to that work as well. Do you want to just share that with everybody?
Yeah, so I grew up watching my mum paint murals in schools, and actually she went all around regional. We were just thrown in the car, and I left school halfway through year 10, and at the time I'm like, I don't know why this is happening, but then when I look back at my photos of me as a kid, I was like, it's because I was never at school. Mum was always taking me around, and if I wasn't watching Mum paint a mural, I was watching Art Attack or something like that while she was painting. And when I was 16, I was going through quite a difficult time. I was with Youth Focus, and my nana took me out on country, and she took me under her wing, and she saved my life. And she taught me how to make handmade papers. Oh. And I used to make them as cards, and I would sell them at the Kings Park Art Gallery. And it allowed me to save up enough money to buy my first car, and it gave me the strength to go on to do a hairdressing apprenticeship and all that sort of thing. So the mural is kind of like an ode to that. It's like, these are the two things that my family have taught me, but I wanted to create it, like integrate it together in one somehow. And yeah, the Archway Revealed event really allowed me to have that safe place to explore that, and create this mural of, leaves with my family, 6 of us on the leaves. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm just thinking about what you were talking about earlier around your intellectual property, and having the power of saying no, being aware of your rights, asking for a project budget. If there's any other public art artists out there, that's very much something that you can ask for, is the entire project budget. And you should be getting 30% of that, but that's just my little Nava note. There are also some big changes underway with Trish RJ's team at Office for the Arts around Indigenous cultural and intellectual property. I'm not sure how aware everybody in this room is, but ultimately what we're talking about with creative sovereignty is our Indigenous cultural and intellectual property. And Office for the Arts and Trish and her amazing team over there are doing a huge job working on legislation. So currently, the only way that we can embed ICIP is through self-advocacy, like you were talking about, and embedding our own clauses in our contracts. It is not part of the law currently, and it will be the long game. And it is those resources like Arts Law that provide sort of workshops and advice, like Archwa. Yes, there are many peak bodies. Yes, where was I? Actually, maybe on that. Maybe Amanda, I'm going to start with you on this one. Are there ways in this sector, in our institutions, in our funding agencies, that can actively, tangibly show up to support our creative sovereignty and our artistic freedom.
Are you specifically asking about like DLGC and...
We don't have to name anyone, but you can, absolutely.
No names,
if
people.
you would like to.
Starts with D, rhymes with...
Go on. Yeah.
Don't talk about it. Well, look, we've just seen someone's career almost destroyed by a government organisation. Potentially, it's so frightening. It's so enormously frightening that that's happened to this person. And it's, and then on campuses, you can't say the river to the sea. They're taking language. So we're in interesting times. And whether or not starting with D and ending with, CA, funding bodies and government bodies and NGOs and donors and all the things, it's really difficult to navigate. I don't have to do that. I don't work for, somewhere like PICA, but that navigation and on your own practice, that as an Aboriginal artist, yes, there's certainly navigating that. And do you play the game and hopefully your soul doesn't get too darkened by the process or you don't get too dirty? It's collectiveness, it's collaboration, it's local, active, understanding that you are empowered with being part of something, family, an artist community, a community of some sort. Arch were leading the way, having Zali, having those works talk to each other in there. And I just saw a young woman, a child, staring at an artwork in there. I don't know which artwork it was, painting on this wall. I went in, I saw her there to take some notes. She was communing with that painting for about, 20 minutes or probably was more. Incredible to witness. That's a beautiful little act of what's going on in there is really important. There's collaborations, but the works are all talking to each other. We're a community in there led by a community organisation in Archwa. PICA taking a lead and this is a first-time collaboration. I was very excited by it, and I don't quite know how to articulate why I was so excited about it. It was great at FAC, I've been involved in others. So I don't know where I've gone or come from here. But in terms of funding, it's a tricky course, and I just have to say that we're still navigating that fucking bruising of that torched individual and the referendum a couple of years ago. It was the same kind of kicking and bruising. It'll take a long time, and the only way of doing it is there's collectiveness in there and out here and out there. Gatherings.
And when we're talking about sort of collectivity and having a seat at the table and equity, we're talking about sort of more than your one or two blackfellas. And in paid roles, please. Ani, Charmaine, you've been around for a while. You've seen a bit.
1, 2, yeah. I better check it's still working. One of the things that I've kind of learnt over a long time is mainstream art organisations, if they've got an Aboriginal person who's really passionate or a non-Aboriginal person who's really passionate and will advocate for Aboriginal, First Nations, Indigenous, whatever term you want to use, art, then they hold us and advocate for us well. But as soon as that one or two people step away, then it's gone back into the bucket of, well, you belong in the mix with everyone. And that everyone sometimes makes it very difficult, and makes it very difficult when you don't have someone advocating for you. I'm a strong believer of Aboriginal Arts Centre framework and the networks of Aboriginal art centres, because I believe that they do offer some form of protection to artists and protect artists' rights when it comes to negotiating contracts for public arts, or to protect your copyright, or protect what people can do with your artwork, and know the best practices. In Geraldton, we make sure if someone approaches an artist, the older artists now know, I can't talk to you directly, go to Yamaji Arts and get the contract done, they'll tell you, say if it's a T-shirt, for instance, for a sporting club, they'll tell you how you can use that design and how many times you can put that design on a shirt. Beyond that, what that will cost, beyond that, you come back and renegotiate. A lot of independent artists who aren't part of the art centres have difficulty with that and actually get ripped off, and they talk to you, can you help us do a contract? And I'm saying, go and join Yamaji Arts. Go and join the art centre. Go and talk to Archwa if you're down in Perth. Do all of those things so your rights are protected. And we're not protected from organisations. I had a state government organisation want an Aboriginal artwork for some NAIDOC banners. And as soon as I said, there's a contract, this is what you have to pay, they said, oh no, okay then, no, we'll go and find someone else. And they did go and find someone else in Mullawall who just didn't know any better and went with the flow, and the next thing I saw was the banners in the streets with their artworks on. I was so upset that this kind of thing was playing out still. Archwa, Arts Law, Artists in the Black, we've got people who can advocate for us, but we mustn't be frightened and think that people are ripping. Some Yamaji artists think people are ripping them off. The good old commission is a good example of someone thinking that no one should do all the work for them but not get a commission for everything that they do. And I'm forever explaining the reasons commissions are important, what they will give you, what protection, protect you and your artwork, and all part of that instead of trying to struggle out. And artists do that. Even now, they're not sure where to start. So I did write down something I wanted to say. No, I think that's about, for me, Mugabala and any publisher I use, they do contracts straight away. They know, you know that you're going to get a contract. There's no thing. I do get social media messages from France and overseas and asking me to translate poetry into different languages. I push them back towards some of the, whoever published the book, back to the publisher and say the only way you can talk to me about that is going to the publisher and negotiating a contract. I don't speak to you online about any of that stuff. But it's still shady. We're not really protected. I spoke to the inquiry, the Fake Art Harms Culture, down in Perth. I spoke to the inquiry on that when I was Archwa's chair, on working through that, and people are still copying art and we still are on shaky grounds. And how do we strengthen that and how do we remain strong? You can go on social media now and you see so many artworks that look similar. And it might be young Aboriginal people doing it, or it might be other people. It might be someone I've had arguments with people who said they were doing Bali art with dots. Then we find out that there's Balinese sitting in a shed doing dots and coming back into Australia as Aboriginal art. So this fake art campaign's been around for a while, but it's very, very important. And it's, we need to protect our rights. I can't emphasise it enough, we're still on shaky grounds, even when we have Nava and we have people just doing really strong work for us. But we've got to always be mindful for ourselves and our mob around us to protect each other. So yeah, that's, kind of around that area. Yeah.
I think I agree with what Arnie was saying, and it's also about the cultural safety and the ability to say no and to have no be a legitimate option. It's what reflected well here with Zali. She was talking about an alteration to one of my pieces, and it was it was important to me to have the capacity to be like, I don't want to be a difficult person, but that does change it and away from what it was, and that Zali and PICA and Archer have created a space where it was okay for me to say, no, that does change it fundamentally, and that's not okay. It's like consultation. I do a lot of work with my family down south on heritage and environmental work, and it's not proper, free, prior, informed consent if no isn't an option. It's like you coming to this consultation, it's like, okay, where does it hurt less for us to put the bridge? It's not uninfluenced if there isn't an option where no is okay. Like, you can't have a bridge in this area because it's not okay to have. It's not culturally safe for us. It's not culturally safe for everyone who's going to use that space. If it's like, where does it hurt less to have this happen? It needs to have no as an option. And I think having a space like created here with Zali and Archwar and PICA where no is okay, and having more institutions expand to understand that for our cultural safety and for everyone's cultural safety, that no is okay.
Yay, that's a great and really easy, actionable thing that our institutions can do. You were briefly speaking to the power of saying no as well earlier, Emily. Yeah. Do you have anything to expand on with that one? Or? It definitely took me a really long time to learn that, and certainly not alone.
I think I'm a really strong believer in change. I've seen change. And I was just on the phone with Nana not long ago, a few days ago, talking about voting. And I was telling her about some feelings I was having. And she said, you know, Emily, I was never allowed to vote. She said, I used to stay home with your mum, the kids, and Poppy would go off to vote. And that wasn't for me. I wasn't allowed to. And it was only when, Mum was becoming a teenager that Nana finally could go and vote as a woman. So I see change, and I've seen change, and I believe in that. So I think if we're strong enough to ask the questions, push the boundaries, say no to things, then I definitely have hope for the future. But that's not to say that I'm not having struggles as well. I recently entered in a competition, and I was, they were like, no, you've been rejected for that. And part of me was like, was it too, it was about, the context was about the recent prescribed burning down south and how heartbreaking that was. And and so I was like, was that too political? Did they knock me back because it was... So I can't help but have those thoughts at the moment, but I also do feel like I'm hoping it's not always going to be like that. I want my daughter to be able to enter into things and paint something or do something, or, I don't know, go overseas and, I don't know, follow her dreams without worrying about it, Yeah,
our future's really important. Actually, that reminds me of Amanda, your work. You think a lot about... Oh, it's up there. Is it? Oh, no. I'm just thinking about what you think about when you're making work in terms of speculative fiction and Indigenous futurisms. Just talking about our future generations, sort of the dreaming.
I feel like I'm going to say the same thing. I wish I knew what I was doing. I honestly wish I knew. I'm just feeling my way. I haven't been doing this for long. I mean, I guess, 8 years, So I'm kind of feeling my way, and we work in the colony, and so you're going to come up against things. So as an individual artist, and you go and you install something, you are one artist, and there's an install team, and there's a whole administration and all the things with people with very large brains, and then you're in that. And at one stage I thought, what we need is a union. Let's find out, is there a union? Well, there isn't. Performing arts have got a union. There's advocacy. Is there a union? They're not, yeah. And so I was on the phone to the performing arts one, can't remember what it's called, which covers television and performing arts. But there is no, we need a collective. We need someone to have our backs, and we can be in communities and in our families and so on. But as artists, the whole structure of things, and I found, in unsafe spaces, this is very different talking about here, but in other spaces, when you push, and as an older lady who's kind of raging at the world and doesn't really care that much anymore in how it looks, and also I just blurt things out too. So sometimes I'm just blunt or I blurt things out. It doesn't fall well, and so people fight back in funny little ways in galleries, in install teams and. Words and then meetings, and you get blocked in this, or some of them have been actually very kind of aggressive acts in that, again, no names, doesn't start with D this time, but who'd put someone else, maybe I shouldn't say, but it was very difficult to navigate, and I'm an older Aboriginal woman, and I felt the weight of that coming back at me. And there's not a lot that you can do about that. And that's out there in the world. The leadership of this world is doing that right now. And so I don't know, only gathering together and having a union or have some sort of collective space, archery becomes important, things like this become important. But we're making this work in between spaces, in between galleries, we're having conversations all the time. We have to do that. And, I've been reading on like Black Twitter and other things, how they're gathering in the States. They're just gathering locally, sometimes in people's houses to protect each other and to have these conversations. Out there, it's a war out there. And if we don't want to bring it inside of us, we just have to make sure we're real, and artwork can do that too. That we're real, we're out there. These are our experiences. This is who we are. Let's keep seeing ourselves, because they're trying to erase it. I mean, they're trying to eradicate Native American culture and peoples and art. They're really going first. Why are they doing that? Because they know that's important, to eradicate it, to not hold that up, to not have that history. And if we're careful, I actually thought today I better quickly put in a grant before, if there's a change of government, and I might be a bit stuffed. So before Dutton gets in and Jacinta Price is there, imagine that, the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, I better maybe put in for a grant, because I've probably got no hope with the next administration who are going to get us back on track or make Australia great again or whatever. So I'm ranting about politics and stuff. I don't know whether I'm answering anything or saying anything of value, but I just said it.
Great, thank you. I might, with my last question, maybe bring it up a bit before question time. We're also sort of thinking about legacies and future legacies as part of this yarn. So I might just ask the question to everybody. What do you hope for our future generations of blackfella artists and storytellers in the space of creative sovereignty, freedom?
Yeah, okay. My legacy is I've been going at it for a while now, and with writing. As a teenager, I went to a writers' club in Canberra, and I was told my poetry was too racist and will never get published. It actually put me off mixing with anybody else for 20 years. But what happened is I kept writing in that 20 years. And then I met John Kinsella, and he encouraged, people wonder why I write with him. He encouraged me to put whatever I had back then and put it into a book. And this is this settler, colonial man who names himself as such. I want young people not to get caught up in that type of oppression on what happened to me. That was very hard. I never trusted anyone as a teenager right into my 30s, and I moved to Port Hedland. Another experience was mining companies, fine, take their money, but don't let them veto you. Don't let them say what you can and can't do. I got booted out of a gallery because I spoke against a mining company. In a performance piece I did, I was asked the next morning to pack it up and get it out of there. And that was really hard, but the community gallery then got me to put that into the community gallery and do the same performance. And with the mining company, the same mining company was doing exhibitions in Perth as part of their social licence to native title holders. At the 12th hour, I phoned down to Perth. I had 4 large paintings in it. I said, pack my paintings up, take them off the wall. I'm not going in that exhibition. I've given it enough time to think about it. And that cost me quite a few arguments in Geraldton and with some groups. I was on a black mailing list for mining companies as someone not to get too close to. My cousin was working for mining companies. And she said, did you know your name's on this list as a difficult person? So...
Yes.
Yes, now I do know my name was on the list, but what I'm saying is my legacy, I kept pushing through. I kept telling my truth, and I encourage my young people, my family, my sons, my grandchildren, my friends, always tell your truth. Don't give an assimilated version just because you might be upsetting someone who is a curator, who is a funder. Don't do all of those things. It's better to pull out. And I've done that on a number of occasions. My editors, if they say to me, you can't write, we want to change the sentence around, it doesn't make sense. And I'm saying, no, English and decolonising are two things together. I write how I speak and I use Aboriginal English. You can't muck with that. When I did my PhD, I wrote it entirely in Aboriginal English. One of the reviewers found it really hard and suggested a whole lot of things. We got a new reviewer. So these are the legacies to keep people. With my PhD, decolonising, I didn't put it in a library because that's a process you're supposed to take. I said, no, I am doing what I want with my 100,000 words. You're not telling me. I'm not following that process. I'm cutting it up. You will see it in books. And the university had to accept that. When people say, I want to read it, sorry, you can't. Decolonising. Don't be frightened to decolonise. Use your way of being. Use your way of looking at the world and privileging. I've always privileged an Aboriginal Yamaji way of looking at the world. That's been very important for me, and that's come before anything else. I don't believe in conforming. I don't believe in assimilist ways of doing business and assimilation. A lot of young people do now. A lot of young Aboriginal people on social media say some very questionable things that you're thinking, I don't think they really grew up Aboriginal way, except for maybe biologically, all those things. These are my legacies. These are examples that I tell people of what has happened to me as a person, but I'm still writing and I'm still staying true to the stories and everything. And I just encourage everyone to do that. I've been with our art centre now for 22 years in Geraldton, and we've fought really hard to minimal money from mining companies or no money at all. It's been bloody hard doing that, but we stuck our guns, and having a 100% Aboriginal-owned art centre from the manager right through to everybody. That's our legacy, to tell our stories our way. But that's what I want to tell people. Look at what the older people are doing. I do use the term silence listening. Understand what silence listening means. in the erasure and the invisibility of what the colonial world has done to us. And all of us who create, we're fighting back against that silence listening. We're uplifting, making our people, ourselves, our stories visible. These are my legacies, and I hope that my sons, my family, and my community come through strong with that. But you've got to remain true to yourself.
Oh, has Amanda got something?
No, we're passing it down for a minute.
So,
future generations, legacy.
We're talking about legacy. Okay. One quote I wanted to sort of bring up today, which I really resonate with, is that we're not just bringing up our daughters, but every daughter that comes after her. So whatever I do, that's something that I think about a lot. And I mean that just not my own daughter, but the daughters in the community and the sons in the community. And you may not have a daughter or a son. You may be an auntie or somebody who hasn't got children that you are raising in your home, but you are our legacy, and we are watching what you do, and we want to keep that going. And I just wanted to say that because, I look at a lot of artworks and music and songs and writing and books, and that just keeps me going and wanting me to keep that message going. So whatever strong message is happening, if it speaks to me and I'm like, oof, that can never die, I would hate it if that message died, then I try to carry somewhat through, or have it speak to my own experiences and authentic voice. I just hope that whatever I'm doing, the next generations to come will be able to have their voice heard as well. Yeah.
It's hard to follow after that, but I guess what I hope is that they're free, that people are free to create, to rest, to say no when something feels wrong. I hope that they don't have to explain their worth and justify their presence in any of the spaces that we find ourselves in, that we should be in. I want people to feel deeply connected to their culture and to their family, and to know that art doesn't have to be pretty. It is just a part of carrying on that legacy of the stories, of caring for country. And I guess that's that we're all part of something bigger, that we're all the next step, the next page in the story, and that we all continue the songlines.
I'm just really hearing what you said about rest. We need more than what we get. Rest is resistance, as I can't say that, Amanda. Maybe as a first. Well, okay. I think rest is resistance. Burnout is huge for our mob in any industry, but absolutely in this one. I hope that for our future generations and bubs, seeds.
I'd like it for us now too.
Oh, now? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I hope we get a proper right to be risky. We can do that in our homes, and as you were talking about the yarns that you have inside in our safe spaces, but it would be It feels like it's sort of in that sort of desire stage at the moment, and it would be nice to feel that as a right in the future. For all the bubs out there, do we have any here? No. We're all someone's bub.
And sometimes make bad art or dodgy art or whatever. It doesn't all have to. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on you to come up with the next thing, and then there's an exhibition opening, there's an award, because you've got to hustle out there for money and pay your rent or your whatever. So, and then you don't feel too bad if you feel you have to sacrifice something to get. You were talking about that with mining companies and so on. You've got a solid base. If you've got people to look to, you come to these places, connect with all the things that we've talked about. But artists can make shitty art or art that's beautiful and makes people happy. An artist in Bunbury, I just want to make people happy. I like flowers and I like birds, and I want people to smile. That's where I'm at. I rant against the world, but that's just that. I think I got to stop now. I got nothing.
You've got it all. I think that's pretty good time, eh? Oh, yeah?
Are we done?
Oh, well, we've actually got sort of a little bit of time for questions, if everyone's comfortable with that. Yeah, over to the floor for the next sort of 20 minutes. Oh, well, yeah. Go on then. Do you want a mic? Is there a roving mic? No. It's fine. Yeah. I know it's fine with you. Yeah.
I'm always reminded that it should be a question and not a statement. So mine is a genuine question. You talked a little bit about the kinds of support that you require when you're dealing with institutions, particularly art institutions or any sort of large scale, like corporates who are trying to get you to do public art or whatever. We know that we have a lack of Aboriginal curatorial staff and a lack of Aboriginal staff in arts institutions. What would be one piece of advice you'd have for institutions to kind of enable that support, whether it's to get more blackfellas in who are supporting you as curators or arts workers? Is it more people with cultural competency? Like, what does that look like for you all?
Get out of the way.
I think for me it looks like the staff of institutions understanding what cultural security and cultural safety means to making it more welcoming and actually inclusive for our mob. And sometimes that doesn't happen because it's being looked through a colonised lens, or it's being looked through a really stiff arts the way that art worlds do business. I kind of think of Richard Bell's statement when I think of that. Something is a white world. Aboriginal art is a white thing. And there's a reason for that statement if you pull it apart. I always think about that all the time. But cultural security, cultural safety, making spaces, and the reasons why, but always having Aboriginal people in those places who are engaged. And this is really important, and who are not just going to conform to what the organisation wants and not afraid to buck the system for us if they have to. I could name a few people who are very successful in doing that, but I won't. Who are very successful in advocating for us, making things happen, making galleries cover the art on every floor, making all of these things happen. But that's the main thing for me, and making sure there's a little bit of a budget to make that happen, so we're not an afterthought, because generally we're an afterthought in everything. Yeah.
Sorry, just my art history nerd brain. That work that Charmaine's talking about Bell's Theorem's 2003. I was 11 then, and we're still having this yarn, yeah?
Exactly. Yes. And you know, Aboriginal people put things on repeat. You know when they say, why can't you just get over it and why you just keep repeating? Because the way we do business is things are repeat if they're unfinished business till they get resolved.
Yes, this is exactly where my thought was going to, is this repeated on repeat. I was just going to say that to answer your question, something that could help is just not the amount of hoops that you have to jump through to be able to get hired in those spaces. Personally, I've only had a joyful, honestly joyful life in the last 4 or 5 years. The rest of my, I'm 33, so that gives you an idea, has been full of intergenerational traumas, domestic violence, all sorts of issues in the home. I haven't, and I say this because of truth, like just speaking it as it is. I don't like to, I'm no longer thinking in that victim mindset of woe me, but in a, well, I didn't have that opportunity to do that. I'm doing the best with what I can. And there are people around that are taking me on or mentoring me in places. But yeah, may not have, in your older year, like going into your older years, might not have had that opportunity to go to university. You might not have been mentally well. You might have been experiencing all sorts of stuff. And I've met so many people who have exactly what it takes and more to hold those spaces and create some beautiful, curate beautiful exhibitions and like maybe even be a CEO of a company or something, but not have the credentials on the paper or the hoops, not be able to jump in through the hoops that you need to get there. So I think there's more mentoring happening now, and the kind of conversations I've been around, I'm amazed at how many people say to me, we would mentor you or we would guide you. That's happening a lot more, so that's really positive.
Yeah, no pressure. I think a lot of the conversations around that are about just talking to people, and it's an area where I come across it in a lot of the work that I do through uni and my science projects. It's people wanting to know how to engage and how to talk to people, and it's usually like they're people. So a lot of people are scared by things that go wrong and things that don't work, that they're too scared to have the conversations. And it's about being open to having those conversations and making those connections and trusting in the process to make everything work out.
Get out of the way.
Yeah, actually, yeah, on that, after you said that statement, and Chloe, just to your credit, you've been a huge advocate for succession planning, which is what, when you mentioned that moving out of the way, sort of spiked in my brain, was like proper succession plans. And yeah, for the white ones that are working in black spaces, your job is to move yourself out of that job, please, respectfully. Yeah. Any more questions? Oh, was that a hand up? Or a stretch? A stretch. Yeah. We've got 15 minutes.
That's okay, I can get on the road to go home.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And Amanda, you've got a workshop or something after this, eh?
I'm talking upstairs, but I can do it now.
Too good. Well, to wrap up, thank you, all 4 of you. It's a real privilege and a pleasure to be sitting here and to be joining for the past few days. Yeah. And thanks for being a sick audience. Yeah.
And thanks to PICA. Just a quick thank you to PICA and Archway and Revealed for having us up here at the front.